And we're live. Yay.
Great. Hi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We just had some technical difficulties on both sides, and we are here. So yay. So everybody, I want to just take a moment to introduce my featured speaker and guest today, and this is Wendy Sterling. So Wendy is a divorce recovery specialist, writer, author, and speaker who founded the Divorce Rehab. So Wendy helps divorced women recover from their divorce by finding their true identity and voice, by ending their pity party, mourning the loss of their marriage to create a new, better life they design. So prior to becoming a certified life coach, Wendy established her 18-year career as a top-level advertising sales executive in the digital space at the world's most progressive social and lifestyle website brands, such as Who, What, Where, and Refinery 29. So after learning of her own unexpected divorce and finding the world of coaching, she realized she could combine her 20 years experience in corporate America as a leader with this new coaching methodology and make a profound impact in the world. So she helps women see their divorce as a gift. It happens for them, not to them. She's a graduate of UCLA and a certified professional coactive coach from the Coactive Training Institute. She is also an associate certified coach through the International Coach Federation, and she has just launched her own podcast. Congratulations, The Divorced Woman's Guide, and is a guest blogger on Hello Divorce, as well as a contributing writer for Divorced Girl Smiling.
So, wow, that when you hear somebody read all that about you, I'm like, whoo, that's what a cool person.
I feel so lucky to have her. And I have to tell you all, folks, that as well, and we're going to go ahead and be a little free flowing because Wendy and I had a discussion right before we came on, and also being respectful of what has already been planned and scheduled for 30 days ahead of time, to also being empathetic, compassionate, sympathetic. I'm not even sure what the right word is, and what is going on in our country as well as the world on so many levels. So we're going to start off like we normally do and let it be what it is. But I do want to just say that we're not ignoring. We will see how it unfolds in this. So we appreciate everyone who is joining us and who will be watching the replays. So Wendy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So tell us about your story.
Sure. So my story starts, I was in a really wonderful, happy marriage. My ex-husband and I, or at least I thought I was happy. We were together for over 20 years and married for 15. And I will never forget the day where all of that came crashing down around me. And I have never been punched in the gut harder than I was the night that we were driving home from a couple's night out. It was late, and my now ex-husband received repeated phone calls from a female colleague, and I knew something was wrong. We came home, I confronted him, he denied it, and my gut was just continuously punching me to trust it. And that night and the next day, my intuition spoke to me louder than it ever had. And I have never stopped listening to it ever since, because unfortunately, my absolute worst nightmare was confirmed the next day. And from then on, I realized that the foundation of my life that I had built, that I had come to trust and rely upon, was completely shattered. And here I was with 2 boys and separated. And I realized that when I had kicked him out and also decided to file for divorce, that I completely lost myself in my marriage. I lost my voice. I didn't know who I was when I looked in the mirror. And that to me was more terrifying than the divorce itself. And so I realized that I really needed to figure out who I was, what I wanted, And by some miracle, thank you, universe, I saw a post on Facebook about a friend who became a career transition life coach. And I reached out to her. And from that day forward, she introduced me to the world of coaching, and I haven't looked back since. I had been in therapy. I had read every self-help book out there, listened to every podcast, and nothing was working. And just in the course of a couple of days of taking some coaching classes, I had moved more forward in the pain and suffering around my divorce than I had the entire 8 months before. And that was because I was actually focusing on who I wanted to be, who I wanted to, or what I wanted to do, the impact that I wanted to have in the world, who I wanted my children to see me as. And I knew within those days that there was something special to this that the divorce world didn't know about. And so I continued to educate myself while hiring a coach and moving through my divorce more quickly than had I done it by myself. So in under a year, I got through all of the pain and emotions associated with my divorce and decided to leave corporate America because I had found myself. I knew what I wanted to do. And I wanted to show other people how divorce is an empowering experience that we go through to find our identity and voice, to design a life that we truly love instead of feeling stuck with the one that we have. And so I have created the Divorce Rehab, which is my proprietary 5-step program that I invite women into to help them to do exactly that. And it is something that was terrifying. I was terrified leaving the cushiness of my 6-figure paycheck. But I knew that it was something that I had to do. And I also realized that my divorce was actually a gift and it was happening for me, not to me. So when I work with my clients, I help them to see the gift in what their divorce is bringing to them, and for them to really step into it in a way that they never thought possible before.
And I think that, a lot of people can relate to your story. I know I can, right? I have a similar story, but not. And the whole fact that my husband went out for tacos one morning and I was served with divorce papers. We didn't even have a discussion. And I was like in shock, right? And it was just because he was like, it was just like these outside forces were telling him to do this. But it wasn't because of the fair thing else. Like it made no sense, right? And then I always tell people that I cried every morning for 6 months, but because I was so happy. I didn't realize where that relationship and marriage had taken me. I didn't realize what I was trying to balance out in that relationship. And when it would just became about me, it was good. And I often say, Wendy, that I feel like what happens in divorce is that if it's just about the moment, if it's just about that marriage ending, it is manageable for people. But I feel like what happens for a lot of people, it's about everything that they haven't dealt with. It's about every failed relationship. It's about every mistake that they've made. It's about every regret that they have. And it's that I feel like and I'm sure you can say whether or not that that's true or what you've come across, but I feel like that's what people kind of, sort through. Like people often said to me, like, you're the happiest separated divorced person I've ever met. And it's because immediately I could see the gift. Right? Yeah. Like I could forgive him in the moment. Of course, I use a technique, Theta Healing, right? We're in the Theta Healing Power Hour. I could forgive him in the moment. I could stay in my dignity and in my integrity and not have to maybe, some crappy stuff happened and how things were handled because nobody knew how to handle them, right? But I just kept saying, I'm going to stay in my integrity. And yeah. I could do that because I could forgive him in the moment and we could part amicably, but not because of him, but because of me. And I'm sure a lot of women face this and I'm also a child of divorce, right? So I say my parents got divorced when there were no books written on it and they did everything wrong. And I always knew like I would never want to handle a situation like that. I married a divorced man. I would not want him to be involved in like that with his children or his ex.
Right.
and, that type of thing, because I experienced all of that as a child. So
Yeah.
I know that for women, especially when children are involved, that this is the first and foremost, or I would hope that we could, handle what's going on so that we could be concerned about what else is going on with everybody.
Yeah. And I think that, it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for a lot of my clients to really get to that place where they see it as a gift, right? Which, while we all have our own individual stories of how we got to wherever it is that we are, wherever it is that we are, the underlying emotions are the same, right? Which is where, a lot of the type of healing that you provide, the type of healing that I provide is so necessary, right? Because to do it alone is really hard, and it takes a lot more time than if you reach out, you ask for help. And listen, I'm a huge therapist. I was in therapy, like I loved my therapist. But I also loved my life coach because I was getting sort of both ends of the spectrum. You also know, I've done Theta Healing. I love Theta Healing. I think it is so incredibly powerful. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize, is that it's not like you pop one pill, whether that be therapy, coaching, Theta Healing, and boom, you're cured, right? It's an ongoing practice. It's something that we are constantly working on and working through, because things come up, right? I mean, you and I were talking before this, like what's happening in the world right now is impacting my emotions, not just as a mom, but also as a co-parent to my children. And what it's also created is an opportunity for my ex-husband and I to actually come together to educate our boys and to educate them around what is going on in the world. And it's interesting because we've never been more on the same page about something. And what I think that people don't necessarily understand is that we live kind of in our bubble of divorce, sadness, grief, whatever it is. And I get that. And there's also a massive opportunity for you right now to come together as parents for the sake of your children and put your divorce, just put it to the side for a day, right? A week. And really focus on putting your kids in the center, and use this as an opportunity for them to see you as a couple come together for their sake, to educate them, to hold space, ask them what they're feeling. What is it that they think is going on in the world? Get curious about what your kids think of everything going on in the world right now. These are unprecedented times, whether it be,
Understatement, right?
100%, whether it be COVID-19, whether it be the political landscape, whether it be what's happening right now with Black Lives Matter, or whether that be the fact that we are all going nuts being, locked up in our houses as long as we have. There is so much conversation to be had right now. Is your divorce really the most important thing? I think that is also a really big point, again, why you and I were kind of like, let's see where this goes, because to me, I see this as an opportunity for you to come together with your spouse, ex-spouse, and communicate with one another in a way that shows your children that they come first, right? Just like Black Lives Matter, so do your kids. So does your relationship to them as parents. And it's amazing how, I've even noticed my ex-husband and I, who we were not very amicable for a very long time. And when bigger things than our I hate you issues come up, or stop telling me what to do issues come up, when stuff like this comes up, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if he cheated. It doesn't matter if she cheated. It doesn't matter if, he wants the house and you want to sell it. Really, that's what you want to be showing your children your focus is on right now, right? And I think that everybody just needs to take a beat. And life is now. Life is about so much more than how much you get versus how much he gets. And there is an opportunity for people to heal themselves, to heal their children around emotions that are coming up. I've been a wreck for the last 2 days, an absolute wreck. I have friends who are Black. I have friends who have biracial children. And I've been talking to them repeatedly because they're even feeling fear in ways I can't even comprehend, nor will I ever be able to. And by talking to them, it reminds me of like what is really important in life, right? Is it really because you're pissed off because your ego got burned? Is that what's more important right now? Because it's not. And I don't mean to like stand on a soapbox right now and to take over your life, but I love the work that I do. And part of the work that I do is meant to serve my clients, not just in their divorce, but their tools that they get to be able to cope with situations like are coming up in the world right now. Very similar, Brenda, to the work that you do. Theta Healing is so powerful, and Theta Healing heals so many different things that it's time to prioritize, like truly prioritize what is important in this moment. And I feel that this is more than just a conversation that we're having is more than just about healing from divorce. This is about healing yourself so that you can be better prepared for whatever comes at you in your life. And divorce is one of many things, right?
And life happens, right? Like, and I'm not talking about like I'm just talking about divorce, right? Life happens, and we're here like doing what we can and handling in the best way that we can. But how we do anything is how we do everything. So
Yes.
is it that we, heal from divorce, or that we heal from, Wendy and I actually spoke before we came on, and I was like, I'm not sure, it's that deal. Like, how do you want to go about this? How do you want to address this? Because I feel like Wendy, like, I feel like that things have escalated so quickly. I feel like that we were like in our own little quarantine bubble, right? And people got some time to catch a breath, to work on some things. I think, processing was a lot for people, and us having to deal with however quarantine came about and affected us. From knowing people who had COVID-19, or having loved ones, or knowing people with loved ones who passed away from COVID-19, right? So we've been in this progression, and then all of a sudden, all of this with Black Lives Matters, it almost feels like it feels spinning. I'll just say that, like, and not knowing exactly how to support, how to help, how to let people know, like, I'm here. It's like, I was just like talking to my sister yesterday going, I'm not sure what to do, but I want to do something, right? Like, I want to be here. I want to show up. I want to support. And then I woke up this morning to like a 55 group text between like my best friend, my sister, and my sister-in-law, because they're on the West Coast, right? And I'm in Texas. So they're having this like last night, and I'm asleep, and I wake up reading all of this because my best friend has biracial siblings. And and then her mother is concerned, of course, about her children. And my friend is concerned about her siblings because they live all over the country. And I think that that's the thing, is that you know, for myself as well, I think it's part of that quarantine, whatever situation, where I know how I feel, and I know what my world looks like, and it doesn't reflect what's going on right now. And I feel like that's also why it feels surreal. And then, like, as Wendy's saying, like, I'm reading the post, the text, and my friend saying, my children don't see color, right? Because they have cousins and aunts and uncles who are Black. And she's like, I don't even know where to go with this. I don't know what to say to them. Right. And I think that that's a big thing. Like, how do you handle divorce and with your children? And then how do we handle what's going on in the world with our children? And I think it's that we get to be in that we are concerned and that we love one another, and that we stand by Black Lives Matter and say things when they're, when we see injustice, and just let people know that we love you and that we're here and that we stand by you. We stand beside you in this whole process. And although we may not, it's just like when you talk to somebody, if you've been married the whole time or if you're single and then you have somebody go through divorce, it's like, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I love you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we're doing here.
Yes. And that's the thing, like, you never know what somebody else is dealing with, what somebody else is going through. And we've all lost the ability to have compassion for ourselves and for other people. And, it was really interesting. I was talking with my boys last night about something, related to what's going on, because, the news was on, and, I live in Los Angeles, and there was a huge protest in downtown LA in front of, the police headquarters in downtown LA. And it was very peaceful. And thank goodness. And, I was trying to explain to my children, why it's important to use your voice, but how to use it in ways that people actually hear you, right? Because the rioting, you're not sending the message you want to be sending, right? But if you use your voice in ways that matter and making a difference, right? Our lives are more than just, I want the house, or I want 51% instead of 50% of this, or, I just want to be done. Why can't the courts open? Well, you know what, you guys, like, is that really going to make a big difference? What's going to make a bigger difference is this: you doing something here to make an impact for you and other people later in life. And, I've used this opportunity, my ex and I have we've totally rejiggered our custody. There's curfews in LA that he lives, in a area that has earlier curfews than I do. We've come together to come up with, like, what we think is a safe plan for us, just like we did when COVID-19 hit. How are we coming together to respect each other's wishes and what our individual families need, right? And that's what's important, is your kids seeing you coming together and working towards a common goal. The other piece that I also want to mention is kids aren't born hating. They're just not. And kids hear things anywhere. It can be out in the world, it can be in the video game world, it can be on YouTube, it can be on the internet. Our kids are exposed to so much that we don't even know. And if you're not talking to your children, if you're not getting curious, if you're not asking questions, right? If your ex-spouse is not getting curious, this is a time for you guys to come together and create a game plan around how can we be more aware of what our kids are being exposed to, what our kids are hearing. Because again, kids are not born hating other people. Kids are born into this world as little parrots. They pick up and hear anything and everything, right? It's like when we were younger, somebody could have said something to us that, like, was completely unintended, but created an opinion that we've carried with us for the rest of our life. That is what this moment is creating for us. It is a huge opportunity for us to impact the future of our kids' lives. None of us want our kids to grow up with this still being a topic of conversation. I sure as hell don't. My kids are 14 and 10. I never in a million years would I have ever thought that this would still be as big of an issue today. And it makes me so upset. It makes me, it makes me remember what is important. Okay. And yes, I am on the other side of divorce. I am, my divorce is done. I'm not saying that people that are in it right now should stop what they're doing. I'm simply saying that this should be a wake-up call around what is really important? What is really urgent right now? What is urgent? And if anything else, we have a huge opportunity to impact our children's future lives and to educate them on what's happening, what is right, what is wrong. That a color of somebody's skin has nothing to do with who they are or what their character is, because all people do bad things. All people do good things, right? Look at history. And I am, you know, I just am very pro in this time and in this world right now. Like, we have to be pro future of this country, and that's our kids. And we have an opportunity as parents, right? And you have an opportunity as co-parents to help, to just show your kids what's important. Like, life is now, life is so important. And being kind to people is important. Giving people a chance is important. Listening to people is important. And I mean, I have so, you know, I'm going live in my Facebook group later today, and, you know, people just need space to feel whatever's coming up. And that's what you get to do for yourself, for your loved ones, for your kids, for your, you know, whomever. But do so in a safe space. And if you're not positive about how to say something or what to do or how to support, ask for help. It's the same thing you do when you're healing from divorce. Ask for help. Say, like, I don't know how to talk to somebody about this, or what am I supposed to call this person, right? Ask. Because if you don't, you're going to hear something that's going to not help you, right? So anyway.
Absolutely. And I think that that's also one of the things too that somebody was also mentioning, was that some communities, right, like business, like Wendy and I know each other from a business group, right? And so that some groups, not our group, but some groups are like, well, this isn't appropriate to be discussed here, or, and it's like, if not here, where? Right? If not, you know, it's like there's not, you know, as I say, most of the time, I'm going to tell you, like on my Facebook page, I am Switzerland.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that I just don't pipe up about. This is just not one of them, right? Like, I can't, you know, like I had to kind of get my bearings a little bit. And I think that that's what's happened for most people this week. It's Wednesday. We've spent a couple of days going, what is going on? What is going on here? And, you know, and I feel like that with certain things, some things are taken out of context, which is why I don't watch the news, right? Because I want to just know that I am, you know, talking to my friends. Like my sister was like, I had a conversation with my like friend, like in Chicago, and I asked her how she was doing, and I started crying. You know, like she's like, I was crying because I'm feeling pain around this. And I feel like that, you know, it's not just about parents. It's about every adult out there
in the world.
What example are we setting for our future generation? And what is the message that we're giving them?
Yeah.
And by either, you know, and this is the thing, and Wendy and I said, I grew up in a household that was prejudiced, which probably would be surprising to even some of my family. But, you know, and it was an unsaid, and we knew that it was around. And I think it's why my sister and I both so fiercely are very unprejudiced, because we did not agree with it. And so when I hear people say, well, that's how I was raised, I'm going to call bullshit. You have a choice in how you look at things and what you say at things. And probably in my younger day, I was in some people's faces, right? Like when I would hear something, it would just anger me. So I'm a little older now, a little bit more appropriate in how I do things, because I don't react to anything hardly at all. But it's not that I don't have feelings about it. I just don't react about it. And I understand like what I want to do in order, like think about like, how can I be the most impactful? And so I
Right.
want to say, like, for all of us between quarantine and life situations and what were happening, yes, we all have emotion. And Wendy and I were just talking about this before we went on live. Like, it almost feels like it's exploding it or magnifying it or expanding it or however it wants to be. So, one, I do not want to like say I do not have compassion, empathy for where you are and for how things are unfolding. And I also feel like that what's going on in the world puts things into context. And
Y-
and it's hard to be able to look at that, right? And so I'm guessing, because we had this like one like script of what we were doing, and we're completely off. And which is, Wendy kept saying, well, what do you want to do as the host? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do as the guest? And we're doing this Chip and Dale thing, and I'm like, well, then we're both open to it unfolding in the way that it does and letting people know. And so I just
And
want, I just want to go on record in saying that. And it feels like important to do that. And I feel so blessed that I have Wendy Sterling here with me. Like, we're side by side in saying, this is how we feel. This is what's important. This is,
well,
and again, I will even say, like, even in my own relationship, which is, no longer, right, in my own marriage, there were a lot of times that I looked at my Caucasian husband and say, well, it must be nice to be, a middle-aged white man in the US, right? Because even he would like say something and I'd be like, no, you didn't just say that, or you feel like that. I mean, it's like that was that kind of thing. And growing up in Texas at the age that I have and having lived all over the state of Texas, and it's not just Texas folks, right? But I'm just saying my own experience. There have been a lot of times that I just looked at people and say, that's a racist comment, right? And most of them did not know.
yeah.
And I say, well, are you, because I don't think you're racist, but you do. And it was just because nobody had ever said anything, right? So until we educate people and we say things and we stand side by side and saying, you know, there are injustices all over the world. But right now, as American citizens, Wendy and I are looking at what are the injustices going on in our own backyard. And, what's the work that we can do? How can we be this? And it's not like get over yourself. Like if you are in pain over something else, it's that be aware that there are some bigger things going on.
Well, and I think that what's coming up for me about that, Brenda, that you're saying that kind of ties back to kind of merges both topics today, which is that I hear all the time from people that they are so embarrassed and ashamed to say that they're divorced. And number one, my mission in this lifetime of mine, this life, is to change that. I want to change the perception of divorce, that it is something that is empowering. And that's my platform. Divorce is an empowering experience. And when you think about being someone of color, right, walking around in this world, what do you think they feel? And is saying you're divorced really that bad? Are you under the same scrutiny and shame that someone of color is walking around with? And listen, I get it. I was terrified to tell people I was divorced because I thought it had this negative connotation with it, right? The world's not persecuting divorced people, right? And that's what you're afraid of versus what's happening in the world right now. There is true persecution happening on human life because of the color of their skin. And I just would encourage people to really think about what it truly means to feel shame and embarrassment. Because if you think saying that you're divorced is that, I hope that what's happening in the world right now is a really good lesson and wake-up call for you, because your skin color, your marital status doesn't define who you are as a human being. Your actions define you. Your language defines you, right? That to me is such an important point that I hope people who are listening like agree with, because again, it's like, it just, what's coming up for me is like this, I am, people need to wake the heck up, like wake up, you know? And I'm not saying that divorce isn't hard. It's freaking hard. I get it. But you know what is harder? Walking around this country, being judged all the time, and just because of the color of your skin.
And being in fear of your life, right?
And walking around wondering if you're going to get to live another day. Wondering if you cross paths with a police officer, if they're starting to profile you from head to toe. Do you have a divorce sign across your head that somebody's profiling you? No. Come on. You know,
Right.
it's,
And you know, and when you're talking, Wendy, this is the deal, like you're like saying, which is what like brings up so emotion, like saying, I'm ashamed to tell people, you know, or I'm ashamed of being divorced, right? Because we all look at our failures. And I feel like that's kind of one of the things that's going on, is that we're looking at our broken system. We're
yeah,
looking at our broken society.
yeah,
And, you know, like right now, like when you're saying that, like I'm getting emotional because I have to be honest, like I'm ashamed to say that I am American and what is going on in
yeah,
our country right now and how it's being handled. And it's like anything, like when you look at like quarantine, and again, people were like, oh, my rights are getting taken away from me because, you know, but we've all had choices. Choose to wear a mask, choose not to wear a mask, choose to stay at home, choose to like go to certain things or not, choose to do social distancing or not, choose to do however you do, right? Everything is a choice. But for some people, they have lived their whole lives without choices
mhm,
because of how we have allowed things to unfold and how we have allowed injustice to happen without saying anything. And so here we are, right? Like I feel like it's all like, maybe it's Wednesday or whatever. It's all come to a head to just say like, what's on, you know, and, you know, this morning, like just being in a business group where we're discussing, like, it was like, we're not going to talk business. We're going to talk about how we feel. Right. And I'm like processing, like, how do I feel? And in my mind, I'm looking at all of the injustices that I've seen throughout my life and the prejudice and everything else, and how I've always like been verbal about it.
mhm.
But now it's when we need to have our voice. I feel like that some of us have been in this isolation and this quarantine, and now like we have just been like, you know, snapped out of it and said, you've got to show up.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be active and you've got to say something, which is why I'm so incredibly grateful that we're doing it now, because like, you know, this is a bit cathartic here and everything else, because I just have been like in a state of confusion. And so that's why I'm so incredibly grateful that we had just the discussion that we had, you know, just in my business group, you know,
Yeah.
like 2 hours ago, to be able to say, okay, and be like, okay, what do I do with this show? What do we do in this co-live? And how do we handle it? And
Yeah.
how can we be? And I just, you know, and again, this is my thing, and this is what I will say. If anything that I've said has been offensive to somebody who's white, please unfriend me. Don't be in my community. Don't be part of my world. Because I'm going to stand by this, and I'm going to keep standing by this. And I've been pretty apathetic in my life, right? Like I've been like, when I see it like on my one-on-one, and I'm like, okay, I need to, this is a wake-up call for me to be able to do it differently.
Yeah.
And to be more like thinking of others. And what can I do in this moment? How can I be more active? How can I impact? And again, I, you know, like I don't have children, right? But I want to be able to help the future generation. And we were just actually saying that, like, I can't change who my parents were, how we were raised, some of the things that I saw with some, some family members who are deceased, right? That was then, and this is now.
Yep.
And all I can do is step forward and be like where I'm going to be. And this is like in any situation. And we're going to do a little bit of work around this because I feel like it's what is needed and called for. And again, this is way out of my comfort zone because, like I said, most of the time I'm Switzerland. And that's always like the joke here. But it was like, I cannot not say something. I cannot not say how I feel. And I cannot. And I think I think we're all still processing it because it keeps like going from bad to worse. And I think we're all going, are you kidding me? Like, and not, and like, like, I can't believe something else has happened. It's like, I can't believe what keeps unfolding and how horrific it is.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like I can't catch my breath and knowing, and so this is the first step in saying, okay, I took a breath. And this is what I know to do right now in this moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also an opportunity for all of us to take a stand. And that's what leaders do. Leaders take a stand. And you're a leader in your community. I'm a leader in my community. But we're also leaders at home. We're leaders in our own lives.
Right.
You don't
have not to just online, right?
Yeah, you don't have to own a business to be a leader. Leadership is a mindset. It's not, business equals being a leader. It's up here. And as leaders, we get to take a stand for ourselves, for those that we care about. I mean, you said it not too long ago, like, for the first time in my life, I am so ashamed of this country. I am so ashamed of how people are still acting. And it pains me. I mean, it's like how I wish I could wave a magic wand for people going through divorce and the emotions. Like, I wish I could wave a magic wand and make all this hate go away. Because this isn't the world that I want. And if we don't take a stand, if we don't be leaders, it's never going to change, right? It's just like your right to vote. It's just like, as women, we fought to vote, right? Like, you've got to be part of the change. You can't just sit back and think that it's going to change by itself. But it also doesn't mean that you have to. We all can do small things that lead to bigger impact, right? Like me just talking to my kids, changing two individuals growing up is going to ripple. My son was getting into a conversation last night about all the protests and the riots happening here in LA with his friends. And one of his friends wrote him back, because I, of course, have access to his social media, wrote him back saying, that's a really good point. Like, our kids are having conversations, right? And they're doing it because they're taking our lead. And if we're not taking the lead, if we're not being leaders to our kids, to our friends, to our family, to our communities, whomever, nothing's going to change. If you don't want to go out and be a protester, don't. That's totally fine. No judgment, right? But do something. Don't just sit home. Don't keep your voice quiet. And like I said, if you're not sure what to say or how to say it, start small and then go bigger if you want, right? Like a platform like this. But don't stay silent. It doesn't help anybody.
Absolutely. And I think at times it's important for people to know that they're not alone. Like, I remember, like, when I was in college, I worked for a company that wanted to lower our pay, right? And I was like working myself through school. And so they went on strike. And I don't believe in unions. So again, I don't want to get into that, but I was younger. I've been raised in the South and, that type of thing. And so, but I knew it was wrong. And I remember that the first day that I had to walk across the picket line,
Mm.
I literally was like, I was a cashier at a grocery store. I literally was at my register just crying the whole time.
Mm.
And this almost feels like a similar situation. I just cried the whole time because I just was like, I can't afford not to work because I was putting myself through school, but I
Right.
can't not be not okay with it happening, right? Like that they want to take away our pay because they chose the wrong places to build, right? And it was like, I just, and I just remember going home that night because I was home for the summer and
Right.
looking at my mother saying, I have this much money in savings.
Mm.
I can't go to work anymore for right now. I can't cross the picket line. And I want to go ahead and be a part of the picket line. And I just need to let you know what I'm doing. And I need to know, like, if I get in a pickle financially, is there any way that you can help me? And my mom was like, yes, I can help you. And I was like, okay, I just need to know that. And what I remember is, and my point of this is that I was in the picket line and my regular customers, right? Because I worked like myself through school, going to school full time, and I worked like 32 hours a week. And being in that picket line, and my customers looking at me, going, "Oh, Brenda, are you support this?" And like
Mm.
literally, one of the managers from the store was like, "Why are you here? You're not even in the union." Like he looked at me and said, "You're not even in the union. Why are you picketing?" And I'm like, "Because I believe in this, and I think it's wrong what the company's trying to do here."
Yeah.
And he said, and I said, the thing that you're most confused with is that you think that people shop here because it's this company, but people shop
Right.
here because of me.
Yeah.
And literally a couple that were like my regulars walked and looked at him and looked at me and they went, "Oh, Brenda, are you a part of this?" And I went, "Yes." And they said, "Well, we'll be back when it's done."
Oh, I love that.
And the manager looked at me and I said, that's why. And the store that I worked at was in a small town right outside of San Antonio, and they were the most um, because of where it was located. Right, the company picked the one right location for that one. It was their most profitable location. It was their most impacted
Mm.
because of this. And that's the thing, is that people need to know that they're not the only ones. They need to know, like, oh, you feel like that? Thank you for opening up the space for me to support you or for me to say my truth,
Right.
right? And for me to be there. And so it's important. It's like, this is how I've lived my life always. And me, like, wanting to be in that integrity of who I am and what I support. And that's why this show is going the way that it's going, which I'm pleased as pie, pleased because I was very confused, like when we were going into it, going, "Well, I'm not exactly sure. Do we follow the same script? How do you feel?" We were, like I said, we're being very Chip and Dale. She's like, "Well, it's your show." And I'm like, "Well, you're my guest. And I want to be, again, I want to be respectful of that." But at least we were on the same page. We're on different parts of the country, different time zones, different situations, and we are on the same page. And so I feel very blessed that Wendy's here and that there's no mistake in how things unfold. So I know for myself, I'd like to do a little work, but I want to like bally back because we started a few minutes late to say to Wendy, is there anything else that you want to say to your community, to your people, your clients who are going through divorce, that you feel like needs to be said in this moment or that didn't get covered here previously?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just the theme of today is that, we all get to feel whatever comes up whenever it comes up. And there's no right or wrong way to feel, whether that be about your divorce or whether that be about what's happening in the world. And, the advice that I tell my clients that I work with all the time when emotions come up related to their ex and or divorce is just let yourself feel what comes up, very similar, Brenda, to how you and I have leaned into what's come up for both of us today. And leading into this conversation is a beautiful example of what you also get to do in any aspect of your life, right? It's not just divorce. We have loved ones who get sick. There's people, who we're friends with who know loved ones who are ill or going through hard times. And I just really encourage you to lean into what I always say is you have to feel through it to heal it, because if you don't, you're going to stay in a place of suffering, and no one should ever suffer. And that message relates in a much larger capacity based on what's happening in the world. And there are a lot of people suffering, and any one of us can make an impact in supporting those that are and making a change. And sometimes it doesn't have to come with direct contact. Sometimes it can come through you making one small piece of, or one small shift. It can come from you reaching out for support around how to do and shift, if you don't have the knowledge. So just don't be afraid to get the support that you need, because it's out there. And don't be afraid to start a conversation around what's coming up. I have an amazing community. Brenda has an amazing community. There's so many different people here to support you. And I think that's ultimately just the last thing I'd love to.
And I think that that's another big thing, just to piggyback off of Wendy, is that we are here to support you. It's why we're speaking up right now. We're here to support our community. We're here to support our Black friends and colleagues, which is why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
We are here. We're showing up. We support you. And I feel like that, on the same, people may be like, well, I don't have a place to be able to discuss anything, what's going on in my lives. Well, we have to put it into context and however that is, right? So if it feels like, yes, I am concerned about Black Lives Matter, but I'm also in my pain, then you got to, get support, right? Like what Wendy's saying, and figure out
and
how
overlap. There's overlap in that, right? Because if you're feeling something in one place, it's showing up in every other place in your life. So it's not just divorce related. It's, or it's not just, world pandemic related. It's everywhere.
Right.
Because that's your go-to story. So sorry to interrupt you, but.
Oh, no, absolutely not. So, again, I'm a Theta Healing master and instructor. This is something that I've been doing for 14 years. And if you feel like that this, because we've been so caught up, I haven't said this at all. If you feel like that this discussion and the work that we'll be doing here in a moment is helpful for somebody, tag them. If somebody needs to know that we love them and that we support them, tag them. If you would like to share this on your timeline and tag other people, please do that. My whole deal is always in doing these co-lives is to let people know that they're not alone, to know that there's some work that can be done in order to support and love people, because that's what Theta Healing is all about. Like, I literally thought this morning, because one of the things that we can do with Theta Healing is send unconditional love. It's one of the few things that we can do with Theta Healing, to unconditional love from God. That's the deal. And it's one of the things that we can do without getting anybody's permission. You'll always hear me say, like, this is a very respectful, complimentary modality. And, we never do any work without somebody giving a verbal yes, but I can send unconditional love without getting a yes. And I just thought this morning, I just want to send unconditional love to the world. Like, that's what I want to do. And it can happen very fast because it's done and a different timeline of what my timeline is here in this world, right? And so I just went, whoa, well, that was quick. Like when I did it, right? Because I was just like, God, please send unconditional love to everyone in the world, and to everyone, especially who really feel like that they need it now, right? And so before I do any work, so what Theta Healing does is it bypasses our minds, right? Because our minds are where we get really stuck with. And it actually heals like on a cellular level. So it bypasses time, thought, all of that to be able to help people. So it's very quick, it's very easy. So whenever I start to work with a new person, group, or class, because I teach this, I always make sure that we have 3 beliefs in place. I want an instant healing. I deserve an instant healing, and an instant healing is possible because things happen very quickly with Theta Healing. We just want to make sure you're not going to get in the way. So if you would like those, and of course, with the replay as well, guys, you get this work. All you have to do is say yes out loud. So if you'd like those, just say yes. You can say yes, Wendy, to prompt everybody.
I'm happy. I'm a yes girl, so you got it.
I'd love for us, because we often say, like with Theta Healing and getting those definitions, like in alignment with God, Creator, whoever you believe to be your higher power. So we want to shift what prevents us from actually feeling and knowing like that unconditional love of God, Creator, whoever you believe to be your higher power, because we really need it at this time. So we need to make sure that we can feel it to the extent that it's available to us. We also want to change what gives us shame, right? Because it's kind of like our secrets keep us sick type deal. So we want to change what causes us shame. We want to change what prevents us from standing in our truth for our highest and best good, right? So be able to do it in that way that honors us and honors others. And we want to change what prevents us from being in that honoring process. We want to change what prevents us from doing it differently and looking at it. And we want to change what prevents us from being and knowing that what we say, do, and think can make a difference in the world, in our lives, and and for our families. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
We want to change what prevents us from saying that was then and this is now. That can open that opportunity for it to be different and for us to make a difference. And we also want to change what prevents us from, let me restate that. We want to change what prevents us from being aware and to not participate in the double standards and in the invisible standards that may not affect us, but affect others. And we also want to change what prevents us from seeing everybody as an individual versus as a group, right? Because we're looking at not biasing in any way, shape, or form. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
So Wendy, did you on purpose get off your video?
No, I didn't.
Okay, there you go. Okay, I was like going, just want to be sure because I know that people, So is there anything else, Wendy, that you would like that I haven't mentioned that you would like to see some work done on?
The one word that came to me actually as you were talking was the word community. So I don't know what comes up for you around that, but that's what just came, that's the word that came up for me.
So let's get God's definition of community so that we can be in alignment with that and be in that divine definition of it. And then let's also, let's shift what prevents us from being in and a part of our community for change. Okay. So if you would like that, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And then I feel like the last thing, right? Like you don't have to know Theta Healing. Of course, I would love for you to take a class and learn Theta Healing. I know that what we'll do is like Wendy and I both have like free offers, and we'll post them in the comments so that you can take advantage. I have like a 1-minute meditation for abundance, but I promise that you can use it for whatever your intention is. So if it's balance, if it's unconditional love, whatever your intention is, it takes 1 minute. I start off my day and end my day with it. It's like a beautiful way. And again, so many other things can lead to so many things. And what is your free gift? Or
Yeah, so I offer free support calls. So whatever anybody is feeling and going through, I am here to listen unconditionally and judgment free. So I offer anybody to take advantage of that time with me. So I can post the link, or I think Brenda, you have it, or we'll post it.
you can post them, right?
Yeah,
So, and and that's the thing. Also, I have a scheduling. It's like www.chatwithbrendab.com. That if you need some extra support, a little bit of Theta Healing, want to know about Theta Healing and how it can help you in your situation, whatever that is, feel free to contact me. But I would like for us here to take a moment to just pray for unconditional love for ourselves, for others, for anybody who's in pain, and just take a minute. And I think that in that collective consciousness of us just doing that now can be pretty impactful. So let's go ahead and do it, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
Do it in the way that you know to do it. So in doing that, I got one little extra piece to do. I think we've gone from being in fear of catching a virus to being in fear of our lives, or being in fear of our loved ones' lives, right? And again, it's like and lives of a virus, and lives of color of your skin. I mean, I feel like that it's all been a lot of fear, and I feel like that it comes up so that we can heal it. So I want to go ahead and change, what obligates us, right? That doesn't give us a choice. So what obligates us to be in fear? What obligates us to perpetuate fear? Because we can't be in the change if we're in our fear. And we want to have a choice. Like, I'm not saying that there's not things to be fearful of. There is, and rightfully so. But when we remove the obligation, it gives us a choice. And then it gives us an opportunity to grow. So we're going to end with that, right? And then, we'll both say bye, but we're going to go ahead and do that. So if you'd like that, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
So thank you for everyone who has been watching us live, who is sharing this, who will share it, who is watching this replay. Thank you for Wendy for being my guest and allowing it to organically unfold the way that it has unfolded. And we'll put I think we're probably Wendy and I each, and then she'll be sharing it into her groups and we'll be sharing this all over, right? How can people get a hold of you? What's your website? That type of thing, Wendy.
Sure.
Well, right, folks? You're going to want support from her. There you go.
I mean, I would want support for me, but I'm a little biased. So
she can be biased in that way. Go on.
Yes. Thank you for giving me permission. So you can get a hold of me. My website is wendysterling.net. And I'm here on Facebook, Wendy Sterling. My Facebook private group is called the Divorce Rehab. And I am also hosting a summit next week, if it's okay to mention that, that is free and is meant to support anybody wherever you are in learning how to disconnect, set boundaries, and move forward. And that website to register for free is called beyonddivorcesummit.com. So that's me.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, so much. We'll be posting the information in the comments below this. And again, next week, I'm all in my, I will be interviewing Marianne Tranter, who is nurse practitioner, an advocate for children's health, and it'll be very insightful as well. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you again for sharing. Thank you again, Wendy, for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. Mwah.